When I was 16, I lived in a small house in the backwoods of Washington. My mum had left when I was 6, so it was just me and my dad. I'd grown up hearing creepy stories about the woods a few miles away from my house. All the stories were similar, but everyone had a different version. Basically, the story was about a shape-shifting man thing that lived in the woods. Other than that, everyone had their own little add-on to the story. I always enjoyed scaring myself and getting that adrenaline rush, so I decided to check it out for myself. All my friends were pansies and refused to go with me, and even said that I was too scared to do it, so I also did it to show them up. The next day, I grabbed my hunting knife, a flashlight, and my cell phone, and traveled into the woods. I'd been walking for about an hour and hadn't really heard or seen anything. After about 30 more minutes of walking, I started to taste something odd and metallic-y, almost like I had a mouthful of pennies. The strange taste also brought an awful stench of burning hair and rotten eggs. At this point, my stomach started to turn and the hairs on my arms began to stand up. I kept walking, glancing back every 10 seconds to make sure there was no weird man thing chasing after me. I glanced back for a few seconds and then looked forward again. I stopped dead in my tracks. 20-30 feet in front of me is something extremely low to the ground on all fours. I stand there for what feels like hours staring at this thing, paralyzed with fear. For some reason, I couldn't get a good look at it, almost as if it was blurry. It seemed to have arms and legs like a human, but that's all I could really make out. Finally, I worked up the courage to turn around and book it out of the woods and back to my house. As I'm running as fast as I possibly can, I look back and I see the thing crawling towards me, extremely fucking fast. I looked forward again and ran straight into a tree, immediately knocking myself out. I wake up in my driveway with my dad hovering over me. I have an awful headache and my ears are ringing. I get up and my dad helps me inside the house. Once we're inside, I sit on the couch and my dad gets me an ice pack. I tell him everything that happened, from the metallic taste to the blurry creature chasing me through the woods. He just laughs at me and tells me that it was nothing and that it was all stories that had gotten my imagination all worked up. A couple hours later, I'm lying on the couch watching TV when my dad yells at me from the backyard.
Hey Chris, can you get those steaks for me in the fridge?
I walk over to him and just look at him. Dad, my name's Jack. Not Chris. He stares at me with a blank face, not saying anything. I shrug it off and get the steaks for him. He takes the uncooked steaks from me and walks into his room, closing the door behind him. An hour later, he comes out of his room with an empty package and throws it away. I just look at him with a confused expression on my face and don't even think about asking. At 10 o'clock, he comes into the living room and tells me to go to bed. I remember thinking that was very odd because it was Friday and he usually lets me stay up as long as I wanted. But I do as I'm told and go to my room. At around 3:30, my door slowly opens. My dad walks very quietly in and sits on the end of my bed. I close my eyes and pretend to be asleep. I can feel him just sitting there for about 30 minutes, not moving or saying anything. He finally mumbles something under his breath in a voice I had never heard before and gets up and leaves my room. I laid in my bed wide awake for the rest of the night, confused and slightly scared of what had just happened. The next morning I walked into the living room to find my dad asleep on the couch. I wake him up to ask him about last night. What he told me made my stomach turn and my heart sink. He had no idea what I was talking about. When I asked him about the steaks and about coming into my room, he said that he had been working since 5 the day before and didn't get home until 4 in the morning. I tell him everything that had happened the day before and last night, and we're both equally terrified and confused. I've never gone into the woods again, and nothing strange has happened since then, but sometimes when I'm around my dad, I'll get a faint taste of pennies in my mouth.